Hi guys, if you have read the title, you will know that this video is a quadruple feature. I'm pretty sure that's the only time and the last time, hopefully, that I will say that in my life. And in this video, I will be reviewing What If, The Eternals, Hawkeye, and SpiderMan No Way Home. So, without further ado, let's get into it. But first, my name is Tyler, and I love film. And today, we will be talking about the almost wasted potential of What If, amongst three other things. Okay, what do I mean by almost wasted potential? Well, we'll get to that at the end. First, let's start with a few things, and then we'll get into episode 1. First, I love the VFX and animation. The animation is smooth throughout the whole series and at no time falters. It is perfectly stylized, perfectly realistic, and perfectly expressive, allowing the series animation to have a lot of style and take on a few different interesting what-if stories in unique and creative ways. Second, voice acting is overall good. Don't really have much to say on that one. Third, I love the take on the Watcher. I love how he takes this appearance of a galaxy since he is watching from the barriers of the multiverse. How he just takes a shape in the sky is very interesting, and how they visualize him mostly comic accurately is very satisfying. And fourth, I'll open up on this one in a bit, but overall, the actual what-if-ness of the series and randomness is disappointing, unfaithful, and could have been used better. But like I said, we'll open up on that later. Episode 1. I was pretty fine with this episode. It's okay overall. It was definitely fun and odd, but wasn't refreshing and kind of bores you near the end. It basically just does Captain America the First Avenger less interesting, and obviously it doesn't take advantage of the full concept of the what if, as many episodes do in the series. But the best tend to go completely out there, and this doesn't, but it's pretty okay to ease you into the series. I loved seeing characters like Red Skull again and the MCU during World War II, but overall it could have been better and was mostly uninteresting. But I did love and enjoy the action and the jazz World War II Nazi montage, and when she fought Shuma Gorath. Otherwise, yeah. Okay, now on to episode 2, and for me, this episode was the first one to really come out of nowhere, and one that I thought was kind of a stupid idea. While the other does make sense and would be interesting and does have some comic basis, this one just comes out of nowhere. I do like Chadwick Boseman's performance and the heist theme, and this episode is a lot of fun, and I do think it is better on a critical and emotional level than episode 1. And I do like the stuff that they do with the Collector, actually making him an interesting villain that I enjoyed watching. But overall, the episode was kind of stupid and mostly felt like filler. But episode 3 was the fun, interesting Phase 1 throwback that I needed. Of course, Phase 1 is my favorite MCU phase because it feels the most raw, solid, and planned out. The characters feel the best and it feels the most genuine, and they're the most escapist films in the MCU, and I love that throwback. I love the Yellow Jacket reveal. I love the theme. I pretty much loved everything about this episode. I loved the vibe. It was simple and nuanced. There was always a sense of something building up, and the pacing was great. I love the sarcastic tone and how Black Widow actually got to be a spy. Overall, this episode made me feel very nostalgic. Okay, now we're on to episode 4. This episode is easily the best of the series critically, and easily in the top 3. It has the best animation that is used to its strengths the best, but it is mostly very heartfelt, emotionally resonant, and the story and character development is the best. Overall, I like this episode, and can't wait to see more in the Multiverse of Madness. The 5th episode, Zombies, is easily the most disappointing for me since I was looking forward to it and was actually excited for it. I'm familiar with the comics and I couldn't wait to see how it would be adapted in the MCU, and yeah, it's really fun, not as fun as I'd like it to be. And the characters are weak, and it is a little stupid and does waste its concept like many other episodes. It is pretty solid, but just not great, and the plot points are interesting, and I love the Thanos part. Overall, episode 6 represents my worst fears for the show. with an episode idea that I am completely uninterested and uninvested in, that I didn't ask for, and what scared me from the trailers. And overall, the story and character development and just concept is pretty bad, uninteresting, and forgettable. I did not have fun with this episode. The episode has weak character development, is ultimately pointless, and treads familiar grounds. But on the other hand, Episode 7 I loved. Being easily the most watchable episode of the series, Episode 7 of What If. Comedy, a lighthearted tone, and Looney Tunes-esque animation and story that make for a fun and compelling What If episode. Episode 8 of What If, another one of the best episodes, is something I've been waiting for a very long time. Ultron gets redeemed in the next 2 episodes, and I love his story and his conquest across the galaxy, killing and destroying major locations and villains of the MCU, including Thanos. Current animation in this episode is top-notch and pretty much everything I've been waiting for. It feels like concept art. The action is visceral. I love the new designs and the problems it fixes for Ultron and the new story it sets aloft. Overall, this is a top-notch episode with real stakes, a good what-if pitch, and great character moments with Black Widow and Hawkeye. And it was all going great until episode 9, which feels cheap when compared to this episode. Not the worst episode, but it feels kind of lazy. It was underwhelming yet very entertaining and had a nice end. Overall, I did enjoy this series. It is a lot of fun, and I like what it does. It does squander its potential like many of the other MCU properties that have come out this year, but it has enough good episodes and good moments, great episodes and great moments to bring it up for me. But it's underwhelming because it doesn't use its what-if potential stories properly. All the things that are on your screen right now are everything that the series should have been. But overall, I give the series an 8.4 out of 10. So before I say anything, I must say that I did not think The Eternals was bad. But it was still disappointing. To summarize, this film, like Icarus and the Legend and this film, flies too close to the sun and melts its metal wings. The film tries so much, it does so much right. I respect it for being unique, even though it falls with characters, story, and plot, which are all basic, the most essential things that a film needs, and it's not even comic accurate. Its fun historical recreations and scenarios are not enough to save this film from mediocrity. Overall, everything that could have made this film great made it mediocre. It tried it so hard to be different that it was indifferent of itself, its characters, and its story. Overall, I give this film a 7.7 out of 10. Though it may not deserve it, with a non-existent structure and zero character development and low value in entertainment, I respect the film for trying to be unique, for trying to be different. Even if that potential was squandered, and that saddens me because this could have been the best film in the MCU, but in the end, it flew too close to the sun. Okay, so overall, Hawkeye was pretty much everything I needed it to be. Though most of the time, it had bland direction that could sometimes shine through and be intricate, unique, and pretty much perfect. The colors are boring, but the characters shine through and pretty much carried the show, even if they're not taken to their full extent or potential. Overall, the show is everything that you want from a Hawkeye show. An MCU-like show, a gritty action show, and a little bit of the comic. Even though it's not too accurate, the series is fun and compelling. Even though the show squanders and neuters its potential and is underwhelming at some points, I give it 8.5 out of 10. But please note that my TV ratings are much harsher than my movie ratings. For a TV show to be great, it must be a 9.4. And for it to be passing, it must be a 6.5. Now we get to the one that everybody wants to hear about, and the one that I want to talk about. Spider-Man No Way Home. When compared and contrasted to the rest of the year, this film brings it home. Easily the best film of Phase 4 and the best property of Phase 4. Unlike every other entry in Phase 4, this one does not squander its potential for the most part. I had a great time with this film. It is extremely enjoyable, entertaining, and the fan service is used well. But now, let's get into the real points. So, like literally everybody has been saying, this is a film of 2 parts. Or I'd like to split it into 3. The first half is the standard MCU fare, very John Watts and reminiscent of the last 2 Spider-Man films. But it does do the style well and nearly perfectly, and nearly the best that it ever has, besides some moments of Far From Home and most of Homecoming. And it does set up some major character beats and have some good moments with Peter and Aunt May. But overall, it isn't the best. It's kind of clunky and a little messy, but nothing bad. The beginning does blend major and important elements well with the John Watts style of the last few and with what it needs to do with this story. Peter's interaction with Doctor Strange, many have a problem with or take a problem with, but I do not. It's showing Peter's irresponsibility. This film is about him growing up, as the last 2 have been him becoming his own and then moving away from the man who helped him become his own so he can truly become his own, learning different lessons along the way. This film is about him growing up and dealing with that identity, dealing with the responsibilities that he now has as a more prominent hero. And the ideologies of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Aunt May battle throughout the film, along with the Goblin and many of the villains and other Spider-Men that really just develop the film and show us a different side to an MCU Spider-Man film. So I'm going to sidestep and say that the cameos in this film are awesome. Daredevil does appear for a split second, and I like how Doctor Strange and, of course, the other Spider-Man are in the film. Doctor Strange and Daredevil being it, along with Iron Man, Nick Fury, and Happy Hogan being throughout this trilogy, makes it really feel like the classic Marvel universe where all the stuff's happening very tightly, where it's an actual universe. There's heroes doing other things that you can bump into. The other 2 parts of this film are the middle and end. The middle is very character driven and overall really good, and then the end is extremely nostalgia driven, that leads to an epic finale that blends all the great elements of this film together. And the villains in this film are overall very good. The new ones introduced, it's not a Sinister Six, and at no point becomes it, but each of the villains has a proper introduction and good things to them, except for maybe the Lizard, who gets the least screen time and the least development devoted to him. But out of all of them, Goblin and Doc Ock are phenomenal, and Goblin is terrifying, while Ock is cold and calculating. And this film has a classic Spider-Man plot and a classic Spider-Man solution to the villain's development, reintroduction, and banter was a standout to me. And Thomas Hayden Church was surprisingly also a standout to me, giving another heartfelt and consistent performance, even though each of them are great in their own way. Though the film is very nostalgia-driven, it is not all hype. There are some great character beats, and the score, I might add, is phenomenal, blending Maguire, Garfield, and Holland's scores is phenomenal. The film does each of the Spider-Man justice. Was willing to have fun, but also knows how to incorporate necessary elements that needs to succeed, and the film is very good at using its complicated elements and blending them to make it as good as it is. And the film has actual stakes, phenomenal stakes, great character and story. Peter goes on a journey through this film, like I said, and it is exemplified best when Aunt May dies and gives the popular line, great power comes great responsibility, and Peter truly learns to become his own in this film. And that last swing at the end of the film, developing his own suit, going off on his own without his aunt, going into a crummy apartment and swinging through the city to become his own, that gives me hope for the next trilogy, and I hope they don't botch it up. This wasn't just a one-time thing, because this film was great. I have hope that the next Spider-Man films will be even greater. Overall, I give this film a 9.6 out of 10. Easily the best Marvel thing this year. But DC still beats Marvel overall.